So how are things going in Montreal, where you are right now?
It is pretty much the same as you guys. I mean, people are confined for the now almost 7-week period since March 13th. And people are, of course, responding to the government's advices and all of the healthcare professionals that are recommending everybody to distantiate from one another, to stay at home as much as possible. The word is out. People are just eager to go out as we just came out of the winter period. And now spring and the warmer weather is showing itself. And still, people are allowed to go outside, obviously, but cannot enjoy the full measures of going just to the park, as most public venues are closed and will not permit gatherings for more than 2 people at a time, as you probably have the same rules.
Yeah. What about the economic activities? Are they still being limited?
Economical activities are slowed down. A lot of entrepreneurs are reconsidering how they do business. As an example, restaurants are now offering more takeout possibilities, so people can order and go at a very few number to the restaurant, pick up their orders, go back home and eat there. But in-restaurant eating is forbidden. And there's a lot of local merchants, local restaurants that are having a lot of problems with the rents, of course, because there's no revenues. And for that reason, there's a lot of government grants going out, but will not be able to get to every entrepreneurs that are out there. And like that, people are also from home ordering more and more online, which of course diverts the economy to those big conglomerates that permits at-home deliveries.
I see. When the Prime Minister was asked yesterday when he expects the restrictions to be loosened, he said it won't be weeks before this can be done. So are you prepared? I mean, Canadians been prepared to stay sheltered in this manner for a long haul?
Yes, we are. Yes, the country is ready for that. But what is most anticipated, as just you mentioned a few moments ago, the second wave is very much what we fear most, as people will start being a little bit more loose, will be maybe a little bit less disciplined. And this is what is coming up in the next few weeks. So by summertime, around June or July, experts have been voicing out their concern of everybody just moving out of the houses and in a more social gathering mode. If that happens, and because of the low level of testing we have been able to, the health services have been able to procure, we don't have an exact picture of what is going on. And there's a big debate here also how to account for the deaths that are been happening. Are the governments at the various level accounting for the deaths that occurred only in hospitals, that occurred in retirement homes, that occurred everywhere, in fact? So that's why you have, for the province of Quebec, high figures as they account for all deaths all around, as other provinces and countries just simply account for the deaths that happen in hospitals.
Steve, what have concerned you the most? You are in Montreal, and as far as I know, it's the region with the highest number of infection. So,
yes,
what's your concern over there?
Well, the biggest concern is, for everyone here, it was a big surprise to understand the provincial government's working with retirement homes projects have not been up to what was expected and publicized. What I mean by that is there's a lot of retirement homes around Montreal and inside Montreal, of course, and the civil servants have been screaming out for a lot of times, a lot of years, that they were underfunded, understaffed. And now, because of the crisis, these retirement homes have become a very large infection zones, let's call them like that. And for that reason, the Prime Minister of Quebec yesterday asked for the Army support to have 1,000 troops coming in and just to do basic humanitarian aid to help people to get a better way of life inside of these retirement homes, as the healthcare workers are not able to sustain the high tempo that is demanded in this time of crisis, because they have to, of course, consider that you have people that are infected, those that are not infected, separating both the zones as the crisis progresses. And of course, there's no lack of basic necessities for food and water so far, but there's been a lack of personal protection equipment, as you might also have on your side. And the federal government is working hard to get those to the people, but there's a distribution also crisis in that sense. So they make the most out of what they have, and getting more and more equipment as there is a worldwide demand. So that puts a lot of pressure on the supply system.
Steve, I assume that most people, if not all, are supposed to be working from home at the moment in Canada, right?
Yes, it is the case, and it was a welcome measure for a lot of employers and, of course, employees. I mean, staying at home, keeping them focused to what they can perform as much work they can do. Put some constraints, though, on the telecommunication network. So most of the providers were caught off guard, and of course, a lot of people like me were just I'm not surprised, because I work a lot with the infrastructure, and I knew for a fact that the decentralization of the workforce from city centers to suburbs was taxing the telecom network. So they have adapted in a few weeks into the crisis, and now they have a stable network of making people work from home, be able to do these kind of video conferencing with not too much lag, not too much loss of quality. So they've adjusted. Of course, we got different platform also problems like Zoom, which has now enhanced their security posture as of yesterday. Well, coming into the version 5 of this software that will reduce the likelihood of compromission of sensitive information, because the security has been enhanced. So that said, a lot of companies rediscovered the way to work from home, rediscovered what tools is necessary, and is adjusting. And I think for a fact that in the coming months and years, this will be a lesson to learn and apply, that it's not everybody that needs to go down in the center core to work from there. They can do it easily at home, thus reducing the traffic flow inside city centers.
Steve, you are cyber security expert, and so far we can see how people have turned to online activity and try to work and having more activities over there. What's the unusual aspect have you found so far, and what's the opportunity you see in the future with more online activity, especially in cyber?
Well, the basic cyber hygiene has to be prevailing at all points. I mean, more than ever, there's a lot of criminal activity, as you might have noticed also on your end, that you have cyber criminals wanting to have access to more and more, not just information, but money. Really, that here we benefit from a lot of grants that the government is pouring down on us, the citizens, while other places in the world, they have to work it off. They have to survive. And for that reason, they just reignite some of the old tools of cybercrime, and then are flooding with phishing email everybody else. So this is a great time and then this is what is keeping me busy a lot of my time, is to do some awareness, and that awareness brings into education and educating people on how to use the computer in a productive way, especially using online tools. And from that point, I believe we'll have a more awakened workforce to work with technology as time progresses, because they will have the time to put their hands and minds onto it. But especially in the educational world, now the students and the teachers have a new way to communicate to each other. A new dynamic is arising from this situation that permits them to have a more personal touch communication. So the teacher phones up or emails the students at home, and it brings them that closeness that they didn't have necessarily time to have in class while in physical contact. But it doesn't bring out that having less personal contact, and I'm one of them, having to teach in a class that I see my students in front of me, I'm pretty much like better doing this than over a virtual mean, because the human contact is not the same, the feedback is not the same, and it is very important to keep that visual contact much present.
Steve, I understand that one of your major concern is that the sudden increase in the use of teleworking by bureaucrats and government officials is making the government more vulnerable to cyber threats more than ever, right? Can you talk more about that?
Well, yes, certainly, because as civil servants are just scattered all around where they live. Let's put it that way. It could be around 30-kilometer radius, but geography is not of a concern with technology. And so when you have civil servants working from home, they basically have to have either a computer given by the government. If not, as it is right now for many civil servants at whatever level, they're using their home computers. And for that reason, there's not too much security that has been verified upon the computer at home, meaning some employers will give an antivirus that's given to the enterprise. Others would just say to the employee, just go to that website. We have a secure portal, connect to it, and we should be fine. And you heard my words, should be fine. So that's the reason where the IT teams to verify and certify systems have a heavy workload, making sure to what they control of resources, they can secure the communication. But that said, if you have let's say a civil servant, the federal level that has to work with sensitive material in the physical environment back in the office space is secure for that manipulation of information. That processing also happening on the computers is also being certified as efficient and secure. Now back home, of course, it's only family members going all around them, but they have to have their own workspace. And that's for a small apartment, sometimes very difficult to get, and especially to ensure they have the proper secure means to communicate sensitive information. As an example, it is tax season. Of course, the tax limit date has been extended, but it's still that if you have a civil servant processing tax returns, they have to work with sensitive information. Now, if it is not done with the proper secure means, they could compromise the personal information from the citizen, and then they could initiate other problems that we don't have time to tackle on. So that's the reason they have to adhere to secure means that are appropriate and especially vouched by the government security employees that will make sure that the data from and especially the privacy of every citizen is kept and ensured.
Nice. In fact, not only the civil servants, but everybody should watch out during this crisis.
Well, of course, because as an example, when at the start of the month of April, you had the Zoom platform that was tested by University of Toronto's Citizen Lab that was deemed unsecure and surprisingly was seen having traffic being diverted through China. It arose. It woke up everybody in the security community to the fact that you had a secure platform. You had a platform that was not secure. Easy to use though. Everybody adopted overnight this platform, which is great. But now it took a few weeks to make this company just spin around and include what was publicized back then as a secure platform. And it's not an overnight problem that came like that. I mean, the Zoom platform has been seen over the years as an unsecure mean to exchange. And now in a crisis, you have to have access to something to communicate. So that was one easy way to go. But other than that, you have other platforms that were already in the market to work efficiently and securely that were not as considered as easy. Of course, when you do the test, you realize that these platforms do not provide as much maybe functionalities or ease of use as Zoom would provide. So that, in a sense, has been a big step forward for this company. But also, it should be the fact that for every company that has to work with privacy, when it has to work with intellectual property, they have to double check by which means this information will flow around. And if it's not the guaranteed end-to-end communication, then the ideas, the strategies, the privacy of information can be compromised with just a few clicks.
Steve, you must have heard of 5G conspiracy theory. What do you think of it? And why is that? Why do people have so much imagination about COVID-19 and link it with 5G?
Well, in this this crisis, I mean, people have been going around, and of course, that's the beauty of the internet. There's a lot of information to access. What's the downside of it is, of course, there's a lack of official words for some of these subjects. Now, 5G has been around as an idea of implementation across the world once again. To be the next generation of cellular development. Now, there's a lot of those conspiracy theories, Nathan, I believe you would be saying, would be that people are advocating that the 5G towers are enabling the virus as the towers goes up and under operation, which is totally false in many sense, has been proven scientifically. And we haven't seen much of these situations in Canada, with people just putting these towers on fire, as we saw elsewhere in the world. But that said, it is not impossible that people will turn to they want to have something to be physically to be accountable for what's going on. And for some, have their imagination go to the extent of saying, yep, this is one reason why, since these towers came along, that we're having these problems coming all around the place. Fortunately for us, there's not too much of the 5G that has been deployed so far, so it's not a capital reason why 5G has been spreading around.